MCOMNet, second Monday at 7 p.m., W5FC. W5FC.
Mr. Chairman, I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
Does anyone need to use the repeater before we begin the 9 p.m. Skynet? This is WB5OZL. My name is Brenda, and I'll be your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time by using the pro sign break break and your call sign. Is there any emergency or priority traffic? This is a directed net. Please do not transmit without direction from net control. That would be me. And stations are reminded to ID at the end of your transmission. This weekly net operates on 146.88 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9. Check-ins via Echolink are also possible using the W5FC-R station ID or Echolink node 37247. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio video links are available online. Go to W5FC.org right now for the complete list. Remember to tell others about this popular net. You can now check into the net electronically by going to the club website, W5FC.org. Look for tonight's announcement and click on the hot link to check in. We will acknowledge you on the air, and don't worry if you want to check in via voice. We will continue to do that too over air and Echolink. All amateur operators are welcome. You need not be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. The net is 90 minutes long and is structured in several parts. 1. General announcements. 2. Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, where and when you can look through a telescope. 3. National Space Society events. 4. Recent astronomical discoveries. 5. Discussion topic of the evening. 6. What's up? 7. Space exploration and space history. 8. Constellation of the week. 9. Space launches of the week. 10 visible satellite passages over the next couple of days, 11 astronomical Q&A, and 12 73 round. All amateurs licensed to transmit on this frequency are invited to check in. So let me go see. I did see it here. Okay, stand by. Right now we have electronic check-ins. We have KE5ICX, Tom in Corpus Christi, K5MCD, Cody in Dallas, AA5AH, Robert in Richardson, KF5JHA, Bob the Cat, and Chaz the Cat on Animal Planet. Well, I don't know about that. N5BB, Bill in Irving, N5LIG, Dale in Dallas, WV5OZL, Brenda in Dallas, N5OF, Clay in Mesquite. So, do we have any, let's see, any voice check-ins? We'll start with short-time check-ins over the air. Please come now with your call sign, name, and where you're transmitting from this evening. Please come now. Okay, none heard, so let's go with regular check-ins over the air. Please come now.
Kilo, Golf, 5, Uniform, Foxtrot, Romeo, Jacob in Farmers Branch.
Kilo, Juliet 5, Juliet Alpha Kilo, Nick in McKinney.
Kilo, November 5, Echo, 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 Al in Allen.
This is Whiskey Bravo 4, Mike Foxtrot, India, WB4MFI, Ted, Dallas, Low Power.
This is Whiskey 5 Golf, Uniform Sierra, Gus, far, far northeast Dallas. This is Kilo Golf 5, Whiskey Victor Lima, James in North Carrollton.
Okay, we have KG5 OFR, Jacob, J5JAK, Nick, KN5 EEE, Al, WV5MFI, Ted, W5GUF, Gus, and KG5WVL, James. like we also have KD5LQD, Jimmy. All right. Any other Echolink check-ins now? Okay, if I got your call wrong, please come back and correct me. Can't always read my writing, unfortunately. So anybody through any mode now, please come.
Correction. WB4. You said WB5. WB4MFI. Ted, Dallas, low power.
My apologies, Ted, WB4MFI. Welcome to the net, everybody. All right, let's see. Do we have any general announcements for this evening's net? These can be ham, astronomical space, or general interest to license hams. Please go ahead. Okay, hearing nothing. I'll tell something about the other nets. The AMSAT Radio Amateur Satellite Group has 3 nets available to Dallas residents. On Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Central, you can check into the National AMSAT net. Learn all about amateur satellites and how you can use them in amateur radio. The National AMSAT net will bring the most up-to-date information on amateur satellites currently in use or new ones coming online. You will need Echolink installed and be registered. You can find the net under Groups and AMSAT. Also, a live audio link is available on their website, www.amsatnet.com. This net originates in Houston, Texas. 2 local nets are available in Dallas. Both these nets encourage active check-ins. You can ask questions of the net control as well as others checked in. AMSATnet East, Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas is every Tuesday at 8 p.m. on this repeater, 146.88 megahertz. PL 110.9 megahertz, Tuesdays. Tom and 5HYP is net control. All are welcome to check in. First Tuesday of the month is DARC Club Night, so no AMSAT East that night. Dallas AMSATnet West is every Wednesday at 9 p.m. on the Arlington repeater, 147.14 megahertz, PL 110.9 megahertz positive offset. So, let's see. I'm going to skip all the regular nets. I think we know all about those. This gets kind of long. Here is tonight's Afterglow info. I'm going to call on Tom, KE5ICX, who may or may not have read this possibly accurate synopsis of this movie. KE5ICX, please come now.
Thank you, Brenda. This is KE5ICX. I'm Tom, down in Corpus Christi. Tonight's Afterglow info is as follows. Take notes.
HTX-1138 was pretty sick of his job. While it seemed wearing a radiation-hardened uniform and hood in basic white was all the rage at his place of work, he also found it somewhat difficult to smoke cigarettes inside the helmet. Supervisor NON0000 would frequently yell at him and demand he dump the unfinished task on the floor and return to work. Such was the price of working for a mysterious company with even more mysterious products. On the news, another runner from the nearby Logan Company had left his job prematurely and was clogging up traffic for everyone wanting to get home early for the holiday weekend. DDX 1984 called him to say he was canceling their weekend mind-controlled trivia game, Big Brother, where every question yielded the same answer. The game always ended in a tie anyhow. To make matters worse, a nearby visiting ape colony was in for the annual Ape vs. Humans Canasta Championships, making hasty exits out of the underground city nearly impossible. THX-1138 wondered if just quitting his job and joining that fanatical book club where everyone not only reads but memorizes the assigned book might be a better dystopian weekend fun activity. A weekend in the country seemed relaxing. He also knew he'd probably end up memorizing some weird book about overweight authoritarian society. Join us for George Lucas's first film, THX-1138, from way back in 1971, tonight at 10:30 p.m. You can also get the hot link for THX-1138 with the pre-viewing over at W5FC.org and look under the Skynet information. You'll see the movie hot link right there at the very, very top. Back to you, Brenda. This is KE5ICX.
Thank you, Tom. This is WB50ZL. So you can keep up with all DARC events, nets, and activities by going to the club website, W5FC.org. So I just looked at the online net, and we don't have any additional ones, but we'll be checking in there through the night. Now, information about the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, where and when you can look through a telescope. I'm going to call on Chaz, KF5JHA, to give us that information. Please come now, Chaz.
Thank you, Brenda. Good evening, everyone. You know, this is the only planet that I know of that has animals, so that's why I called it Animal Planet. Okay, I'm kind of distracted. Bobby Cat's right beside the computer, and there's a football game on with the Ohio State University. So, yeah, they're sort of in the lead 41-7, but I'm still watching it. So, Slide Master Slide number 1 on November the 21st is the next Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas Club meeting. That's in 6 days at 7:30 p.m. in person at the University of Texas at Dallas. There's also a Zoom component for members. The featured speakers, well, really, it's the Astrophotography Special Interest Group, and also the annual swap meet. If you've got something you'd like to sell at the meeting, that's the place and time to do it. Now, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas hosts Saturday night public observing sessions in the area. Skynet was picked to be on Saturday nights, so there could be an opportunity for live reports from the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas public observing sessions. On the third Saturday of the month, that would be tonight, the stargazing is held at Cedar Hill. So, do we have a ham radio operator at the stargazing that would like to make a report? Please come now with your call sign. Well, being at the observing session would make an easy trip by radio to the repeater, so I guess there's not anybody out there that's working the radio at this time. You can go to the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas website, texasastro.org, for up-to-date information and details about meetings and public observing sessions. You know, they could probably see the planet Saturn. If they stayed long enough, they could see Jupiter in the evening sky. lots of different deep sky objects to see, and also double stars. A lot of things to see out there tonight. This is KF5JHA, back to net control.
Thank you very much, Chaz. Next, National Space Society events and activities. Bill, November 5, Bravo, Bravo. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Brenda. This is in BB, November 5, Bravo, Bravo. I happen to be the National Space Society North Texas Chapter Vice President and Membership Director. The National Space Society is a nonprofit group based in the U.S. which is interested in the exploration and development of space and the creation of a spacefaring civilization. Our local National Space Society chapter website is ntx.nss.org. Our group also has a Facebook page. Type National Space Society of North Texas in the search box. Our November meeting was last Sunday. The presentation was by Junha Shu on When the Sun Gets Angry, Understanding Space Weather in Low Earth Orbit. Associate Professor Shu works in the new Center for Space Physics and Data Science in the Department of Physics at the University of Texas at Arlington. Since we were in the midst of a solar X-ray flares and CME events, this was an appropriate time to be discussing space weather. On the last Friday evening of each month, from 6 to 8 p.m., the National Space Society North Texas chapter usually sponsors a social event called Space Rendezvous. We skipped the one in October because it was on Halloween evening. But we will hold the one in November. The Friday, November 28th Space Rendezvous event will be held at Cheddar's Restaurant, 700 West Highway 635 in Irving. This is the evening after Thanksgiving Day. And last year we had quite a few people the evening after Thanksgiving Day. The North Texas chapter of the National Space Society meets at 3:30 p.m. on the second Sunday afternoon of each month for our normal meetings. However, we're going to change things up in December, and we'll have a holiday party at my house in Irving on Sunday, December the 14th. It'll be Sunday in the afternoon party, most of the afternoon. And if you're interested, here's how you can reach me. If you have any questions about the National Space Society, you can contact Bill, November 5 Bravo Bravo, at my QRZ listed email address, or at space@byrom.net. That's SPACE at BYROM.net. One other thing I want to mention is the United States Mint opened sales for rolls and bags with the fourth and final American Innovation Texas $1 coin of 2025 back in early August of this year. The reverse or tail design of the coins honors the innovation of mission control at the Johnson Space Center in Texas, in Houston. These coins are legal tender, but they're not released through normal circulation. You have to order them from the U.S. Mint, and I have done so. So if you'd like a couple of these coins, one or two, please contact me in 5BB if you'd like one of them. That's all I have this evening. Back to you, Brenda, if this is in 5BB.
Thank you very much, Bill. Next up, recent astronomical discoveries. This is an article from ScienceDaily.com entitled Astronomers Shocked by Mysterious Gas Found in Deep Space. Phosphine has been discovered in the atmosphere of the brown dwarf Wolf 1130c, defying expectations and theories. Phosphorus is one of 6 essential elements that make life on Earth possible. When it bonds with hydrogen, it forms phosphine, pH 3, a highly toxic and explosive gas. The compound is found in the atmospheres of the gas giants Jupiter and Saturn and has long been viewed as a potential biosignature for anaerobic life. On Earth, phosphine arises naturally from decaying organic material in swamps, but on other planets it is rare and intriguing. A research team led by the University of California, San Diego professor of astronomer and astrophysics Adam Burgasser has now detected phosphine in the atmosphere of a cool ancient brown dwarf known as Wolf 1130c. Their findings were recently published in Science. The team made the discovery using the James Webb Space Telescope, the first instrument powerful enough to analyze these dim, low-temperature objects in detail. The surprising part, however, is not that phosphine was found, but that it appears absent from other brown dwarfs and gas giant exoplanets where scientists expected it. Our astronomy program, called Arcana of the Ancients, focuses on old, metal-poor brown dwarfs as a means of testing our understanding of atmospheric chemistry, said Burgasser. Understanding the problem with phosphine was one of our first goals. Under normal conditions, phosphine normally forms in the hydrogen-rich atmospheres of gas giants like Jupiter and Saturn. Because of that, researchers have long assumed it should also exist in similar environments around other stars, including brown dwarfs, which are sometimes called failed stars because they're too small to fuse hydrogen like true stars. Yet phosphine has been elusive in previous JWST observations, hinting that something might be missing in our understanding of phosphorus chemistry. Prior to JWST, phosphine was expected to be abundant in exoplanet and brown dwarf atmospheres, following theoretical predictions based on the turbulent mixing we know exists in these sources, explained co-author Sam Byler, a postdoctoral scholar at Trinity College, Dublin, who recently earned his doctorate from the University of Toledo. I'm going to reset. Byler, who has led earlier studies investigating this very absence, added, every observation we've obtained with JWST has challenged the theoretical predictions. That is, until we observed Wolf 1130. Wolf 1130c is part of a complex 3-star system located 54 light years away in the constellation Cygnus. The brown dwarf orbits a close binary composed of a cool red star, Wolf 1130a, and a dense white star, Wolf 1130b. Astronomers have long been interested in this system because Wolf 1130c contains far fewer metals, elements heavier than hydrogen and helium, than the Sun, providing a valuable laboratory for studying primitive cosmic chemistry. Unlike in previous brown dwarf observations, the JWST data revealed a strong infrared signal from phosphine in Wolf 1130c's atmosphere. To understand how much of the gas was present, the team turned to Assistant Professor Eileen Gonzalez from San Francisco State University, who specializes in atmospheric modeling. To determine the abundances of molecules in Wolf 1130c, I used a modeling technique known as atmospheric retrieval, said Gonzalez. This technique uses the JWST data to back out how much of each molecular gas species should be in the atmosphere. It's like reverse engineering a really delicious cookie when the chef wouldn't give up the recipe. Her analysis confirmed that phosphine was present in the predicted amount, about 100 parts per million. This discovery raises a new question. Why does this particular brown dwarf contain phosphine while others do not? One possibility involves the object's unusual chemical composition. It may be that in normal conditions, phosphorus is bound up in another molecule, such as phosphorus trioxide, explained Weiler. In the metal-depleted atmosphere of Wolf 1130C, there isn't enough oxygen to take up the phosphorus, allowing phosphine to form from the abundant hydrogen. The team plans to test this idea through upcoming JWST observations of other metal-poor brown dwarfs to see if the same pattern appears. Let me reset. Another hypothesis is that phosphorus may have been produced locally within the Wolf 1130 ABC system, specifically by its white dwarf Wolf 1130b. The white dwarf is a leftover husk of a star that has finished fusing its hydrogen, said Bergasser. They are so dense that when they accrete material on their surface, they can undergo runaway nuclear reactions, which we detect as novae. Although astronomers have not observed any nova events in this system in recent history, such outbursts often recur every few thousand years. Because Wolf 1130 ABC has been known only for about a century, earlier eruptions could have gone unnoticed, leaving behind traces of phosphorus in the surrounding space. Previous research has suggested that many of the Milky Way's phosphorus atoms may have originated from these stellar explosions. Understanding why Wolf 1130C contains clear evidence of phosphine could offer important insights into how phosphorus forms in the galaxy and how it behaves in planetary atmospheres. As Bergasser explained, understanding phosphine chemistry in the atmospheres of brown dwarfs, where we don't expect life, is crucial if we hope to use this molecule in the search for life on terrestrial worlds beyond our solar system. This work was supported by NASA STSCL or NAS 5-03127 and AR-2232 and the Heising-Simons Foundation. All right, that's all we have about that. This is WB5OZL. Do we have any more on-air check-ins? Hearing none, and we don't have any electronic check-ins, additional ones either. So next up is the discussion topic of the evening. This is presented by me, and the title is Scientists Find a Surprising Twist in Earth's Magnetic Field. Scientists studying Earth's magnetic field have discovered that its electric heartbeat flows in the opposite direction from what long-standing models predict. Earth is surrounded by a vast magnetic bubble called the magnetosphere, which shields the planet from the solar winds and the stream of charged particles constantly blowing from the sun. When the solar wind collides with Earth's magnetic field, it stirs up electric currents and magnetic forces that drive space weather, from record-breaking auroras to storms capable of disrupting satellites, power grids, and communications. For decades, scientists believed that the magnetosphere has a simple electrical layout, with a positive charge on the morning, dawn, side of the Earth, and negative charge on the evening, dusk side, reflecting how electric fields normally push charged particles from positive to negative regions. but new satellite data and computer simulations show that the picture is more complex and partly upside down. A team led by Yusuke Ebihara, who is a professor in the Research Institute for a Sustainable Humanosphere at Kyoto University in Japan, found that the morning side of the magnetosphere actually carries a negative charge while the evening side is positive. The findings, described in a paper published earlier this year in the Journal of Geophysical Research, Space Physics, refine scientists' understanding of how electric and magnetic forces flow through Earth's space environment, insights that can improve space weather forecasting and the protection of technology in orbit and on the ground. To arrive at their conclusions, Ebihara and his team analyzed data from NASA's Magnetosphere Multiscale, or MMS, mission, which investigates how solar energy explosively transfers into near-Earth space by studying how the sun's and Earth's magnetic fields connect and disconnect. This process, called magnetic reconnection, explosively releases solar energy into near-Earth space, fueling storms and auroras. The researchers also ran detailed computer simulations to recreate conditions around Earth under a steady stream of solar wind. The results confirmed that the poles behave as expected, but the regions near the equator are reversed, with opposite charge patterns spanning a wide area. In conventional theory, the charge polarity in the equatorial plane and above the polar regions should be the same, Ebihara said in a statement. Why then do we see opposite polarities between these regions? This reversal, Ebihara added, can be explained by the movement of charged particles rather than the static electric buildup. When energy from the sun hits Earth's magnetic field, it causes plasma to swirl around the planet. I'm going to reset. On the dusk side of Earth, that plasma flows clockwise and moves toward the poles. Meanwhile, Earth's magnetic field lines run from the southern hemisphere to the northern hemisphere, upward near the equator and downward near the poles, according to the statement. Because the plasma's motion and the magnetic field lines are oriented in opposite directions, their interaction changes the way electric charge builds up in different parts of the magnetosphere, creating the reversal scientists observed. The electric force and charge distribution are both results, not causes, of plasma motion, Ebihara said in the same statement. By showing that different parts of the magnetosphere can behave in opposite ways, the study adds nuance to models of how energy from the sun enters Earth's upper atmosphere. These findings could also shed light to the magnetic environments of other worlds, such as Jupiter and Saturn, whose giant magnetosphere interact with the solar wind in similar ways, scientists say. Does anyone have any questions or comments about tonight's presentation? Please come with your call sign now. Okay, do we have any additional check-ins?
Kilo Juliet 5, Golf Oscar Tango, John in Dallas.
I'm so sorry, I'm a little slow writing. Would you please repeat that, John?
Kilo Juliet 5, Golf Oscar Tango, John in Dallas. Thank you.
Okay, we got Kilo Juliet 5 Golf Oscar Tango John. Welcome to the net. Okay, moving on. Let's go to What's Up, Chaz, KF5JHA. Go ahead, Chaz.
Thanks, Brenda. This is Chaz, KF5JHA. I just wanted to let you know that we have a video version of Skynet, because you probably want to go to that very soon. How do you get to that? Go to W5FC.org, click on the link to YouTube, and yes, we have a video version of YouTube of Skynet that's going on YouTube right now. Now, this segment of Skynet is called What's Up, because it's all about what's gone on astronomically over the last couple of weeks and what will take place over the next couple of weeks and a bit beyond. That was slide number 2. Slide Master, slide number 3. On the video version, here is an image of Comet Swan that I took using my C-Star S50 on November the 7th, just 8 days ago. I did some imaging on the eastern shore of Lake Ray Hubbard last night, but I did not get an image of the Comet Lemon last night, but Slide Master, slide number 4. Here's an image of Comet Lemon that I took on Tuesday, November the 11th. That was Tuesday night. That was Veterans Day. You can see an airplane flying by in the image, too. If you look carefully, you might see a second airplane that almost went through the image of the comet. Slide Master, slide number 5. Hope some of you got to observe the aurora on Tuesday, November the 11th. Early in the week, we had three, if I remember right, 3 different X-class solar flares. We've talked about different classes of solar flares in the past. And while I was using my C-Star on Tuesday night, I started to receive text messages from people about seeing aurora. One of our own Skynet contributors from the past, Kelly Miller, caught this picture with her cell phone on Tuesday evening. Slide Master, slide number 6. And my good friend Dennis Harwell, he's the other one that helps present the Constellation of the Month at the Texas Astronomical Society at the Dallas Club meetings. He took this image from near Farmersville of the aurora. Yep, across the whole United States got to see the aurora on Tuesday night. Slide Master, slide number 7. A former task president, Dodie Reagan, she lives in the countryside near Austin, captured this image with her cell phone. Dodie is an avid astrophotographer, but she only used her cell phone to capture this image, and nothing more exciting than a cell phone. Wow, that's interesting. Slide Master, slide number 8. We have another task club member, Peter Van Horn. He's also an amateur he's also an amateur radio operator. He was able to see the aurora from his home in Greenville, Texas, and took this picture again with his cell phone. Wow. Slide Master, slide number 9. And a faculty member from Brookhaven campus of Dallas College sent me these pics from near Fargo, North Dakota, that was also taken using just a cell phone camera. Slide Master, slide number 10, please. And finally, a funny friend sent me this collage of pictures that includes northern lights from Houston. For those that are not able to see the video version of the Houston pics, is of emergency vehicles. Oh, that's funny, I think. Slide Master, slide number 11. We've talked about the predicted nova of star T Corona Borealis, which may erupt at any time. It is currently at a brightness of around 10th magnitude. I just checked a few minutes ago, which is much too faint to be able to see with just your 2 eyes. T Corona Borealis was supposed to be a nova more than a year ago. Now, one recent prediction for T Corona Borealis was to go nova on November the 10th. That was 5 days ago, which, well, it did not do. So another prediction is on June the 25th, 2026. We don't know when it's going to happen, but there's predictions When it does go nova, T Coronavirus could become as bright as the North Star. I can see the North Star with just my two eyes from my very light-polluted location here in Mesquite, Texas. The North Star is second magnitude. Slide master, slide number 12, please. Oh, I'm sort of distracted. Ohio State just scored again. The score is 48, Ohio State, and 10 for UCLA. I wonder if we're going to win with only a minute 40 seconds left. Oh, yes, let's see now. Oh, I'm on slide number 12. This image is from November the 13th from spaceweather.com of the sun. The large sunspot complexes on the sun are so large at times that you can use your solar eclipse glasses to see them. Now, the big sunspot complex that was belching out the X5 solar flares earlier in the week was not quite large enough to see with your solar eclipse glasses. Now, the sun is near its 11-year solar maximum. Not quite sure when the solar eclipse maximum will occur until after it happens. I've talked about the solar cycle about 6 months ago on Skynet. Slide master, slide number 13. The third quarter moon was on November 11th, a few days ago, so the current phase of the moon is a waning crescent. On November the 19th, the moon is at apogee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is furthest from the Earth at a distance of 406,691 kilometers. New moon is on November the 20th in just a few more days. Third quarter moon is on November the 28th. Slide master, slide number 14. All right, this is a sprint here to the finish line of What's Up. So we have several different things that will go on between now and December the 1st. Here we go. On November the 17th, the moon and Spica are in conjunction in the early morning sky. Slide master, slide number 15. On November the 18th, the moon and Venus are in conjunction in the early morning southeastern sky. You probably need a pair of binoculars to see the moon and Venus in the twilight. Slide master, slide number 16. On November the 21st, the moon and Mars are in conjunction in the evening southwestern sky. You will need binoculars to see that because it'll be twilight. Slide master, slide number 17. On November the 29th, the planets Venus and Mercury are in conjunction in the southeastern morning sky. And slide master, slide number 18. On December the 1st, Vesta, the asteroid, is in conjunction with a star cluster M22. That's in the constellation of Sagittarius, and that'll be in the southwestern evening sky. And this is KF5JJ, and this is Skynet. Slide master, slide number 19. And for those of you that want to know, the Ohio State University just won the football game. Oh, do any of you out there in Radio Land have any questions or need a fill on any of the information? Or maybe you just have a general astronomy question. Come down with your call sign if you have a question or need a fill. Okay, not hearing anything. So as the moon wanes, so do these words for this segment of Skynet. Stay safe, keep well, pray for our world. It's the only one where humans live right now, and cats and animals. Until next time, actually, I'll be doing another segment on Skynet in a few minutes, so keep looking up so you know what's up. And this is KF5JJ, and this is Skynet, transmitting on the W5FC repeater, 146.88 megahertz. Now back to our net control, Brenda. It's yours.
Oh, thank you, Chaz. That was very interesting. I love those pictures. I've been watching lots of them on the net this week. I never got to see anything myself, but I sure wish I had. So, do we have any more on-air check-ins? Please come down. Okay, and we don't have any new ones on the electronic check-in. So, next up we have space exploration and space history. This is going to be presented by Gus, W5GUS. Go ahead, Gus.
Okay, thank you, Brenda. W5GUS here. Space exploration news, and we started it off this week with a bang on Monday, November 10th. SpaceX conducted another successful Falcon 9 launch, contributing to the ongoing deployment of its Starlink Internet satellite constellation. This particular mission from Florida helped break the annual launch record for the state, underscoring the high operational pace of SpaceX activities. The reusable Falcon 9 booster performed its typical return and landing maneuver, demonstrating the routine nature of reusable launch vehicle technology in modern spaceflight. And as you probably heard, there has been a series of powerful solar flares and coronal mass ejections from a highly active region on the sun, which caused severe solar storms to hit Earth's magnetosphere. The space weather event caused beautiful displays of the aurora borealis in locations further south than usual. Critically, the solar weather impacted space observations, forcing the postponement of Blue Origin's New Glenn launch attempted on November 12th. Forecasters issued alerts for potential temporary disruptions to satellite communications and power grids, highlighting the real-world vulnerability of modern technology to space weather. And speaking of Blue Origin New Glenn launches, it successfully launched its heavy-lift New Glenn rocket for the second time. That was, I believe that was Wednesday. Yeah, November 13th. Would have been Thursday. Successfully launched for the second time, placing NASA's twin ESCAPADE, which stands for Escape and Plasma Acceleration and Dynamics Explorers, two probes, two of them, on a trajectory toward Mars. The launch from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station occurred after several weather and solar storm-related delays from earlier in the week. The mission was a crucial milestone for Jeff Bezos' company, as the rocket's massive first-stage booster successfully performed its first-ever landing on a recovery ship in the Atlantic Ocean, which proving the vehicle's reusability capabilities. The two satellites built by Rocket Lab will study how solar wind strips the Martian atmosphere, providing valuable data for future human missions to the Red Planet. This successful launch and landing helped Blue Origin narrow the gap with its competitor SpaceX in the commercial space launch market. Okay, and on November 14th, a three-member crew of Chinese taikonauts returned to Earth after a stay on the Tiangong space station. The return was reportedly delayed by a few days due to concerns over potential damage from space debris, highlighting a growing challenge in orbital operations. The Shenzhou 21 mission crew had spent several months in orbit conducting various scientific experiments, including working with live mice to study the effect of microgravity on living organisms. Their safe return marked another successful long-duration mission for China's ambitious and rapidly advancing space program. The three astronauts of the Shenzhou 21 crew currently on the station now have no immediate return vehicle in case of an emergency. as their spacecraft was deemed unsafe due to cracks in the spacecraft window. China's space agency plans to launch a new empty Shenzhou 22 spacecraft with improved windshield, windows, at a later date to provide a return option for the current crew who are due back on Earth early next year. Okay, and back to SpaceX, a double header. Two Falcon 9 Starlink missions in one night. The first mission, Starlink 689, launched at 10:08 p.m. Eastern Standard from Launch Complex at Kennedy Space Center, carrying 29 satellites. The second mission lifted off just hours later, 1:44 a.m., Saturday, November 15th, from Space Launch Complex 40 at same Canaveral Space Force Station. This rapid succession of launches added another 58 satellites to SpaceX's expansive Starlink broadband constellation. And both missions utilized Falcon 9 rockets, and their first stage boosters performed successful autonomous landings on recovery drone ships in the Atlantic Ocean. These launches represented the 97th and 98th orbital rocket launches from Florida Space Coast in 2025, extending the annual record. Okay, now we'll move to space-related birthdays. Let's see, astronaut Ed Gibson, born November 1936. He was on mission Skylab 4 Expedition 3. Spent over 84 days in space on the third Skylab expedition. All right, then there's Rhea Shedden, she was born November 8th, 1947, STS-51D, STS-40, STS-58. She flew on several space shuttle missions, including 2 Space Lab Life Sciences missions. All right, also on November 8th, but in the next year, 1948, Dale Gardner, STS-8, STS-51 Alpha. He was scheduled for the canceled STS-62 mission. It was canceled following the Challenger accident. Okay, also in November, but 1933, Ron Evans, Apollo 17, command module pilot on the 6th and last moon landing mission on Apollo 17. November 10th, 1966, Mark Vandy was born, Soyuz MS-06, Expedition 5-3 and 5-4. He's still on active flight status at the time this document was posted. Okay, also in November, but November 11th, 1946, Vladimir Solovyov, he was on Soyuz T-10, Soyuz 7, Soyuz T-15, Mir, and Salyut. He was part of the only transfer between 2 space stations in spaceflight history, which was, Mir and Salyut 7. Okay, then we'll move to November 11, 1975, Greg Wiseman, Soyuz TMA 13, Expedition 40-41. He's still on active flight status at the time this document was posted also. Okay, and then Dick Truly, November 1937, November 12, 1937. He's on STS-2, STS-8. He was the first person to be launched into space on his birthday, which would have been November 12th. Okay, we'll move on to This Week in Space History. Voyager 1, Saturn flyby. NASA's Voyager 1 spacecraft made its closest approach to Saturn, providing the first high-resolution images of the ring planet, its moons, and its complex ring system. The mission revealed new details about the structure and dynamics of the rings and discovered several new moons because the flyby trajectory was optimized for a close look at Saturn's large moon, Titan, due to its interesting atmosphere. The maneuver bent the spacecraft's path permanently upwards out of the plane of the ecliptic. This made future planetary flybys impossible, but set Voyager 1 on a course to become the first human-made object to enter interstellar space. About 30 years later, it looks like, in August 2012. Voyager 1 entered interstellar space. Okay, and November 13th, 2022, the Cislunar Autonomous Positioning System Technology Operations and Navigation Experiment, CAPSTONE, probe successfully arrived in a near rectilinear halo orbit, NRHO, around the Moon. This unique elliptical orbit is the intended path for NASA's future Lunar Gateway space station, part of the Artemis program. The small microwave oven-sized satellite's primary purpose was to test the stability of this specific orbit and demonstrate new navigation technologies to ensure reliable communication with the future gateway. The mission was a crucial step in proving the feasibility of the gateway as a staging point for human missions to the lunar surface. Okay, we'll move to Mariner 9. NASA's Mariner 9 became the first spacecraft to orbit another planet. Date was November 14th, 1971. Became the first spacecraft to orbit another planet, successfully entering Mars orbit after a nearly 6-month journey. It was a monumental achievement, as previous missions were only flybys. When it arrived, a massive dust storm obscured the planet's surface, but once the dust cleared, Mariner 9 began sending back thousands of images. The mission returned more data than all previous Mars missions combined, revealing details about the Martian surface, including volcanoes, canyons, riverbeds, and fundamentally changing the scientific understanding of the red planet. It captured the first close-up images of Mars' moons, Phobos and Deimos. Okay, and then November 14th, 1969, Apollo 12, the second human mission to land on the Moon, was launched by NASA from Kennedy Space Center. The launch was notable for being the first crewed night launch in American space history. During the ascent, the Saturn V rocket was struck by lightning twice, causing a temporary power loss in the command module, which was quickly restored by the crew and ground control. Astronauts Pete Conrad and Alan Bean executed a precision landing near the Surveyor 3 robotic probe that had landed 2 years earlier, a key test of landing accuracy for the future mission. They collected scientific instruments and a significant amount of lunar samples, spending more than a day and a half on the surface of the Moon. Okay, and that is it for this week's space history and everything else. So we will return to net control for upcoming Miss Carolyn's Constellation of Week. So back to you, Brenda, W5GUS.
Thank you for all that, Gus. It's been a really interesting Space Week. Do we have any more on-air check-ins from any mode? Please come now.
Six Tango, check-in.
You blipped out with your call sign. Would you please come back? I didn't get your name either. Oh, I'm sorry, I still didn't hear anything. And this is WB50ZL. Well, perhaps you can try again in a bit. Next up, Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week, KF5JHA Chaz. Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Tom over on Echolink said that it was NR6TT is who was trying to check in. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week is named in honor of Silent Key Carolyn, KC50ZT. Carolyn contributed to Skynet each week almost from its beginning in 2012 until May of 2019, with a detailed look at one particular constellation each week. Since there are about 52 easily visible constellations seen in Texas throughout the year, out of the 88 total constellations, so Miss Carolyn covered the entire sky as seen over North Texas in a year. In her honor, we've continued that tradition of a constellation per week and named this segment after her. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week this week is Cassiopeia, the Queen. And this is KF5JJ, and this is Skynet. I've told about the myth behind Cassiopeia in the past. Cassiopeia is the queen, Cepheus is the king, Andromeda is the princess, Perseus is the hero, Pegasus is the flying horse, and Cetus is the sea monster. All of these characters are constellations in the sky. Slide Master, slide number 22, the jokes of the week. Excuse me, I've got a frog in my throat. I'm trying to get rid of the frog. Please hop out. The lobby of my local Dairy Cream was closed. The drive-thru was still open, but the lobby was closed due to short staff. They should have hired taller employees. Oh, come on, that was funny. What did the king say when the queen gifted him a fool for his birthday? I have no use for one of these, but it was a nice gesture. Well, that was funny, too. If there's a king and queen size mattress, where does the prince sleep? On the Air, H-E-I-R mattress, the Air mattress. What role does Queen Latifah play in The Equalizer? That's a TV show. A vigilante. Oh, well. I tried on my jokes for the week. And this is KF5JJ, and this is Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 23. Gamma Cassiopeia is an unstable blue giant star which throws off shells of material at random intervals. Gamma Cassiopeia is a variable, but its brightness varies variations are unpredictable. There are two patches of faint nebulosity nearby, IC59 and IC63, which appear to be associated with the star. Miss Carolyn probably had several observations of the star. I recommended visiting the AAVSO, that's the American Association of Variable Star Observers, for more information about variable stars and how to observe them. Miss Carolyn was an avid AAVSO member and did many observations for them. Eta Cassiopeia is a double star found between Alpha and Gamma Cassiopeia. William Herschel discovered the star's binary nature in 1779. This binary is easy to split with small telescopes. The primary looks yellow and the companion looks orange. We have had regular observations of this binary star at the Brookhaven campus of Dallas College. Slide master, slide number 24. Messier object M52 is called the Salt-and-Pepper cluster and is an open star cluster discovered by Messier himself in 1774. Appearing as a fuzzy patch in binoculars, in small telescopes over 100 individual stars are seen, some with different colors. The 80mm short focal length refractor shows M52 as an easily noticeable round ball at 8 magnification, with a single foreground star visible near one of its edges. At 16 power, it makes it bigger and brighter, but no apparent resolution. At 24 power, it starts to resolve some of the brighter stars. Slide master, slide number 25. Messier object 103. Since this cluster is not very dense, binoculars will resolve the brightest clusters in the group, making it a nice object for both binoculars and small telescopes. The cluster has somewhat triangular outline. Therefore, it's been deemed a fan shape or having a Christmas tree shape kind of look by different observers. A number of stars have different colors, making some of the nice color contrast. In an 80mm f5 telescope, the triangular outline is easily noticeable, with the triangle surrounded by many fainter stars that are apparently unresolvable. One bright star that is not part of the triangle is a yellow-orange color. Other stars are white or blue-white. Slide master, slide number 26. The star cluster NGC, which stands for New General Catalog 457, is also known as the OWL cluster or the ET cluster, another nice open cluster for binoculars or small telescopes. The distinctive outline of this cluster can be made out with the smallest telescopes. Many people see the cluster as an owl with an outstretched wings. Others see it as ET, the extraterrestrial, holding his arms out. In either case, two bright stars, Phi 1 and Phi 2 Cassiopeia, form the eyes. And this is KF5JJ, and this is Skynet. Slide master, slide number 27. There are a few more astronomically observing program objects in the constellation of Cassiopeia, the Queen. I've given you just a sampling of some of those objects. The Astronomical League has, at last count, 96 different observing programs, most of which have about 100 objects. If you observe just 10 different objects in an observing program each month, then you can earn an observing certificate and a pen in about a year. Slide master, slide number 28, and that is Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week, Cassiopeia, the Queen. I want to thank my friends Dave Hutchinson and Dennis Harwell for the research and words on deep sky objects that I use, borrow, and steal from them every Skynet. I also at times use the website constellation-guide.com for information. Next week we'll talk about and look at Andromeda, the princess. You know, in the myth story that I talked about earlier. Yeah. This is KF5JJ, and this is Chaz saying goodnight in 73. Back to Remote Control. Brenda, it's yours.
Thank you, Chaz. I got a message that the station I couldn't read a while ago is NR6BP, but I didn't get a name. So anyway, you can come back and tell us if you are listening. So next up, space launches for this week. Calling on Tom, KE5ICX. Go ahead, Tom.
All right, thank you, Brenda, and I'll go ahead and give space passages here as well after this. That's my next segment. So this information is available from spaceflightnow.com/launch schedule. We have one coming up November 20th. The InnoSpace rocket is scheduled for launch from Kennedy Space Center in Florida. The mission is named Spaceward Ambit Nano. We expect to be a test flight or a small payload mission demonstrating the launch capabilities of the InnoSpace company. That's all I got on that one. The Rocket Lab HASTE suborbital launch, this one is scheduled for tomorrow. It says this may change. Rocket Lab is expected to conduct a suborbital launch of its HASTE Hypersonic Accelerator Suborbital Test Instrument rocket from Wallops Flight Facility in Virginia. HASTE is a modified version of the Electron rocket designed for suborbital flights for government and commercial customers, often used for testing advanced hypersonic technologies. And that's it for launches right now. Next up is visible satellite passages over the next couple of days. These would be the International Space Station and the Tiangong Space Station. So we'll start with ISS. We have on November 15th at 4:50 p.m. have a minus 2.5 magnitude passage at 45 degrees. It will appear in the southwest. It will go overhead and disappear to the northeast. We have a second pass about 90 minutes later at 6:25 p.m. This will be at 80 degrees. This will be a magnitude minus 3.8, very bright. Appears to the west-southwest, moves very high overhead, and disappears to the east-northeast. This is what's called a primary viewing opportunity. In fact, you should be able to see it quite plainly. I highly recommend you go out and take a look at this one. It's November 15th at 6:25 p.m. Also, coming up the following day, November 16th at 5:38 p.m., there'll be a minus 3.6 magnitude. This one also very bright. Reaches highest point at 70 degrees. It will appear in the southwest, pass directly overhead, and disappear to the northeast. November 17th, that's two good passes. We have one at 4:52 p.m. It will be at 50 degrees, minus 2.8 magnitude. It appears out of the south-southwest, moves across the sky, and disappears to the northeast. A second pass about 90 minutes later, 6:28 p.m., 55 degrees will be its highest point at minus 3.1 magnitude, so it'll actually be a little brighter. It will appear in the west and move high into the east sky. November 18th, we have a 5:42 p.m. crossing, a minus 3.3 magnitude at 60 degrees, appears in the southwest and will pass high to the north sky, disappearing to the northeast. November 19th, we have a pass at 4:56 p.m. This one will be at a highest altitude would be 40 degrees. Minus 2.1 magnitude. It'll be out of the southwest. It moves across the sky and disappears to the northeast. And then finally, November 20th, starting at 5:49 p.m., this one will reach about 50 degrees. Minus 2.8 magnitude. It will appear in the southwest and move across the sky, disappearing to the northeast. So this week is a prime opportunity to see the ISS. Practically every night of the week we'll have a great pass. So when you get home from work, take a gander outside. You'll see these things during that time, sometimes with double pass. The Tiangong Space Station has two passes that are pretty good this week. November 14th, that'll be at, that was yesterday, sorry. I've got one pass for you, November 16th. That'll be at 5:58 p.m., that's tomorrow. This will be just maximum altitude of about 10 degrees, so it's relatively low in the sky. It'll appear in the west very low on the horizon, around 1.8 magnitude. So not so good, but the International Space Station will definitely make up for all of that. That's all I've got on this round. Not sorry, I don't have more passes for you, more flights, but that's what I got. Back to you, Brenda. This is KE5ICX.
Okay, this is WB5OZL. Do we have any more check-ins right now?
November Romeo, 6 Tango Tango, this is Nicholas in Davis, Northern California. I think you've got my call sign, but just confirming my name is Nicholas. Thank you.
Okay, I think that was November 6th. I think that was November 6th, Tango Tango, Nicholas. Welcome to the net. This is WB5OZL. Do we have any more check-ins? Okay, tonight we had, let's see, 19 hams participating on the air. Thanks to all who checked in this evening. I will hope you join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. We always look forward we're always looking for net control stations for this and all other DARC nets. If you would like to try your hand at this, contact any of the net controls by sending an email to nets@w5fc.org. You can follow topics and discussion about this net and astronomy in general on Facebook and X, as well as our audio and video streams, video archives, and other useful Internet resources by going to w5fc.org at the conclusion of this net. Until next Saturday night, this is WB5OZL, Brenda. I'll be closing the net at 10:23 local time and returning the repeater to normal amateur use. 73, everybody, and enjoy the evening discovering the universe. But wait, there's more. The Afterglow Movie net will start in about 5 minutes. THX 1138, the full movie. So, doesn't matter if you saw it or not. You can come and check in and talk science fiction with us. So this is WB5OZL.
normal state.
I'm completely operational and all my circuits are functioning perfectly.
Afterglow Movie Net.
This is KE5ICX and Tom, and it is now time for the Afterglow Movie Net. Hopefully get a few people to check in tonight. We have what is a moderately well-known film. George Lucas's first film. It was an expansion of something he'd done in college for his degree. It was originally a 15-minute student film. It was expanded into an 88-minute feature-length film backed by Zoetrope Studios, which was Francis Ford Coppola, in case you didn't know that, and represented what was supposed to be a 8-picture deal with George Lucas. I think this was the only one they did together, although Francis Ford Coppola rewrite his script for Star Wars, if I remember correctly, which came out much better than the original version. If you ever read or seen how the original version was done, there's a YouTube on it. It's very boring. So the collaboration between the two helped his Star Wars film later on. Okay, let me tell you a little bit about the film before we get started. See if I can summarize a little bit. The storyline here runs a little long, even though it's kind of thin in places. But this dystopian future where sexual intercourse and reproduction are forbidden, mind-altering drugs are mandatory to enforce compliance on citizens to ensure their ability to conduct dangerous and demanding tasks. Sounds like my work environment when I was working. Workers wear identical white uniforms and shaven heads to emphasize uniformity. Likewise, the police androids wear black and monks are robed. Instead of names, people have designations with 3 arbitrary letters referred to as a prefix and 4 digits shown as the identity badge worn at all times. At their jobs at the Central Video Control Centers, there's a man, XN 5241 and LUF 3417, keeps surveillance on the city. LUH is a male roommate named PHX 1138 who works in the factory producing android police officers. Beginning of the story, PHX finishes his shift while the loudspeakers urge the workers to increase safety and congratulating them for only losing 195 workers in the blast period to the competing factory of 242. On the way home, he stops at a confession booth. A Christ-like portrait of OMM0000 intones reassuringly that he worries that his sedatives are not working, and Love has been acting strangely. At home, PHX takes his drugs, watches holo broadcasts while engaging in I won't tell you, a device. LUH secretly substitutes pills for possession of PHX medications, causing him to cause nausea, anxiety, and sexual desires. Love and text become involved romantically and have sex. THX is later confronted by Sen, who attempts to arrange that Tex become his new roommate. That Tex files complaint against Sen for the illegal shift pattern change. Without drugs in his system, he falters during critical and hazardous phase of his job, and Control Center engages a mind lock on him, which raises the level of danger. After the release of the mind lock, he makes the necessary correction to that work phase. Tex and Luft are arrested, and Tex undergoes drug therapy and medical analysis. He enjoys a brief reunion with Luft, but is disrupted shortly after she reveals that she's pregnant. At the trial, it's decided that Tex was clinically born. It's decided that it would be inefficient to terminate Tex, so Tex is sent to prison along with Sen. They walk to search for an exit. Eventually, they are joined by a hologram actor, SRT 5752, who stars in the holo broadcast. SRT shows them the exit, suggests to them that they may have been going in circles. During the escape, they're separated from Sen, chased by the police android. They're trapped in a control center, which Tex learns that Love has been consumed, and her name has been reassigned to her fetus, numbered 66691, in a growth chamber. Sen eventually escapes into an area reserved for the monks of Ulm, where a monk notices that Sen has no identification badge. Sen attacks him and later wanders into the child-rearing area, strikes up conversation with children, uses aimlessly until police androids apprehend him. Tex inserts to steal 2 cars, struggles to figure out how to drive the car, and finally gets the car to move. He immediately crashes his car into a concrete pillar. After the crash, Third is not found in the vehicle. Pursued by 2 police androids on motorcycles, THX flees into the limits of the city. Android officers continue to pursue him as he briefly struggles with simian-like creatures identified as shell dwellers and arrives at a vertical shaft with an escape ladder. The android officers are ordered by Central Command to cease pursuit on the grounds that the expense of his capture exceeds their allocated budget for THX. In a last-stage attempt to convince THX to surrender, the officers claim that the area outside the city shell is uninhabitable, but he is undeterred and continues up the ladder. The city is then revealed to be entirely underground, while THX has escaped to the surface, where he witnesses the sun setting. Dramatic score, and I think they actually put the word big end at the end of the film. How about that? There's some interesting trivia stuff here. The announcer voices include Scott Beach, Aaron McGovern, and David Ogden Spears, which you may remember from MASH, all of whom had ties to the San Francisco Bay Area, as did Lucas. Let's see here. Just some minor stuff in here, and I guess that's enough. A lot of the sites in San Francisco were filmed directly with the futuristic look. It's all done in local practical exteriors. All right, with that, we will go ahead and get started with check-ins. I will take check-ins with your call sign, your name, and if you happen to see the film. So most of you know the game, so we'll go ahead and get started with that. And let me know, of course, let me say again, your call sign, your name, and did you see the film? So let's go ahead and get started.
Well, I'll go first. And I made it and stayed awake for this net, which I have not been able to do the past couple weeks. W5DLC built Garland. Yes, saw this movie, hated it.
November Victor 5, Foxtrot, Virginia in Fort Worth. Yes, I saw this movie.
Kilo Bravo 9, Sierra Oscar Kilo. Sean, Fort Worth, yes, I did see this movie.
WV5OZL, Brenda in Dallas, yes, I saw it.
November Romeo 6 Tango Tango, Nicholas in Davis, North California. I have not seen this movie, so I'm just listening.
Kilo Juliet 5, Golf Oscar Tango, John in Dallas. Yes, I did see this movie.
Oh, good. We got a bunch of people back and a pretty good bunch of check-ins here. Let me acknowledge everybody who I have so far. I got W5BLT Bill over in Garland. He stayed awake and saw this film. Yay. Thank you, Bill. I was disappointed in it, but that's okay. I understand. I think I have an idea of some of the reasons why, but we will find out from your comments. ND5F, Virginia and Fort Worth. Yep, he saw the film. 89SOK, Sean, Fort Worth also. Yep, he saw the film. WB50ZL, Brenda, Dallas. Yep, she saw the film. WR6, Tango Tango. Nicholas, welcome, Nicholas. He did not see the film. He'll be listening. But hang in there. He'll be asking a question probably after you hear some of the comments. Is this something you want to see? It is a George Lucas film, after all. KJ5GOT. That would be John over in Dallas. Yes, he saw the film. Anyone else want to check in? Please come down. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. There'll be an opportunity for others to check in if you happen to be listening in and hear the conversation here. We'll come back with another round here in a bit. Okay, we'll start in order with W5BLT. Bill. Bill saw it. He said he hated it. Bill, you have watched some pretty horrible films and given them a medium thumbs up, or at least not I hated it. That's unusual for you. So I have some ideas of why you feel that way, because I had similar feelings about the film, maybe, but let's hear it from you. What do you think? What was wrong with this film, plot-wise?
Well, I should have waited, because then I could have piggybacked off other people, and maybe I could have been convinced. But there's still time. I thought the plot was very weak. Really hard to follow, to know what was going on and why, how this world came into being. Okay, we just, hey, you didn't lose so many people today. I mean, it does sound like a lot of work situations. The dialogue was very weak. Sounded like a bunch of stormtroopers talking. And unfortunately, Death Star was not coming in range quick enough, and they destroyed the wrong planet of Alderaan. This would have been a perfect test of that battle station's operational power, and unfortunately it didn't happen on this one. I wanted to like it. I've heard so much about it, but it was horrible for me. And I'm generally try to give things a free pass and see the beauty in it. But as a blind guy, I just thought this movie was very hard to follow. I'm not sure I would have liked it even with the scripted video. I just felt nothing for the characters and people in this movie and the plot, and so he got out. The sun was setting. I had to look this up because there was just nothing in the movie gave me any clue about what was going on. And I thought, man, you're kidding me. It's going to take the Death Star 30 more minutes to get in range to get this thing over with. I think he redeemed himself in Star Wars, and maybe that was with Coppola's help. And I've read some of the early screenplays, and obviously he needed some help to get A New Hope down. So there's no hope for this movie in my view, and please try to convince me otherwise and help me see the redeeming quality of this monstrosity, W5DLT.
Oh my, I've heard some, well, if it makes you feel any better, Bill, I fell asleep during this film last night, and they went to watching it. But the group, I had some trouble with it. This is very slow for me, but I'll give my comments in a bit. NV5F Virginia, you saw the film. What are your thoughts on plot?
Okay, thanks, Tom. Well, I hadn't seen this film since film school. I believe we watched it in a science fiction seminar that I took one summer. And I remember the audio production on it because it did remind me of Star Wars, and I think it's because George Lucas maybe he had the same person doing the audio on this bigger budget version of what had once been a student's film. Yeah, wow. I do think it moves slow because the story is so thin, and they're squeezing like a 20-minute story into a hour and a half of movie time. But it is a confluence because George Lucas was a 2001 fan, which came out 2 years before this, and he I think he maybe tried to take a page out of Kubrick's book of having a really razor-thin plot. He actually described the plot of 2001 as razor-thin, and I think he was maybe trying to do the same thing, have a really razor-thin plot and reduce it all to raw psychology and very little dialogue and all visuals and kind of a leisurely pace, and I can definitely see the influence of 2001 on this with the very, kind of stark, clean, futuristic look. But in this version of the future, it's dystopian, and the plot was kind of understandable. I was watching it with a friend, and we were talking a little bit, and I wouldn't mind going back and watching it again, just with a more, concerted effort to get all the little plot things. But it was, it was pretty obvious it was a Brave New World kind of thing, and they were exploring that. And we've seen other movies recently even that obviously were kind of inspired by this. That movie, what was it called? Equals, I think is what it was called. I think it's pretty obvious it was inspired by this. I'm with Bill. There's no backstory here. There's no how did we get here. There's no what kind of factories are these. What are they like? You don't see anybody at work. My problem, I guess it wasn't as much of a plot problem as it was like an environment problem where everything looked like it was shot in a shopping mall or the back hallway of a shopping mall or a parking garage. It was all indoors because they were underground, and it seemed like the world that they lived in was this never-ending kind of maze of really kind of, unwelcoming spaces, and there was no real clear picture about how they all sort of connected or, what kind of, you saw people like watching TV at home in their tiny apartments, and you saw them stopping at the weird Space Jesus booth to have a generic confessional. where the response was always it was canned. It was always the same, no matter what you said, and I don't know. There was never any real sense of what the world was like, really, how it was laid out or how it really worked. I would say a movie like Logan's Run was kind of inspired by this, and it, for the fact that it was done a few years later, it was much cheesier, like production-wise. It was much less sophisticated looking, but it had at least a kind of a more clear picture of what that world, that funky domed world that they lived in, was like, and how it kind of how it all fit together. And this just looked like it was pieced. The environment was sort of pieced together, and there was no sense of, like, it reminded me of these dreams I have where I'm like in an airport and I'm trying to find a flight, and I'm running late, but I can't seem to get anywhere, and every hallway in the airport looks different than the last hallway, and nothing seems to make any sense, and I can't really get my bearings, and the insides of this world looked like it looked like a parking garage, shopping mall, jetway, big hallway, and then the big white room, the big white spaces were just weird and disorienting. And I think there was supposed to be some of that too. The plot was supposed to be a little bit disorienting. I guess you're supposed to kind of feel the way the character feels, a little bit thrown off. But yeah, I think it could have been. I think it could have been a little more engaging and, maybe even fleshed out a little bit, and with a little more dialogue and a little more of, I guess, understanding the girl's motivation for doing what she did. I guess she was, I don't know. But I see the point of it. And at the same time, it's just, the end was like, oh, I guess he walks through enough weird industrial-looking spaces and drives through endless tunnels in a car, and there's only one, there's no cross sections or any kind, there's no branching off, there's just these long tunnels and tunnels and tunnels that changed the way they look over time, but they never, like, get anywhere. It really is like one of those weird dreams that I have, but then he eventually just goes in the same direction long enough till he finds a ladder and then climbs to the surface, and I don't know. And the hologram guy, like, crashes his car, I guess because holograms can't drive. I don't know. It could have been more clear and more engaging and more interesting. And I do remember that Lucas reported that after they produced this film that Coppola actually challenged him to make something that wasn't a cold science fiction movie, and his response to that was American Graffiti. And I got my opinions about George Lucas. I think that he was talented, but that he got a lot of really good help. He just kind of managed to be with the right people. And Marsha Lucas, I think, is one of the people that saved Star Wars. She was a brilliant editor. But that's beside the point. Anyway, back to net, NV5F.
All right, thank you, Virginia. I had that happen too. I had that dream where you're someplace and you can't get away, and it's always on a trip, right? And you can't get out of the town. In your case, you can't get out of the airport. You can't do any of those things. You're just trapped. And then I'd wake up, and THX 1138 would be playing, and I realized it was true. I was trapped. So only in real life watching this other thing going on. Well, you get the picture. Okay, next up is Sean, AB9SOK. Sean, what's your thoughts on the plot? So far we're not doing so hot. From KE5, ICX.
D9SLK. Well, this was kind of an interesting one. This is probably more third round stuff, but yeah, I definitely see everything from the audio to the music to the visuals, how that influenced Star Wars. It is kind of interesting. This is a film that's been on my list to watch. I've seen pieces of it, but just never had time to sit down and watch it. I went as far as to actually buy it when it was on sale. Just never got around to watch it, so I finally dug it out and watched it. And unfortunately, I think I was tortured more than the rest of you because I bought the director's cut. I never thought it was going to end. Thing went on and on. So yeah, I agree with what everybody says. This thing was just way, way too long. It probably worked as a student film. I can totally see that. 20, 30 minutes would probably been about right. It probably made a good Twilight episode. There was just drug out. For me, yes, I do agree. The world building was horrible. You figure it out, yeah, they're underground. We don't know why they're underground living there now. We don't know why they've decided that they were going to drug all the people and make them just into drones, to where they had no real feelings. It's just all about work was your only concern. Work. And, you didn't really have any desires for your own. We never find out, did we do this because of some kind of war? Did we do it, because of emotion? Why did they want to kill most of your emotions? We never know why. We just know that they were doing it, and it was against the law not to do it, not to take the drugs. So, we find out that apparently the computer picks your job, it picks your mate, and that's pretty much, you have no real decisions in life other than to work. So that came through very clearly, that part of the plot. We just don't know why the world ended up that way. The second kind of secondary plot, and maybe not, maybe it's somewhat tied into it, was that the world, it was clear they were talking about how everything is based upon money. Because they kept talking about, this is going to cost this many credits, this is going to cost that many credits. The whole reason they stopped chasing the guy because it was getting too expensive. Okay, go ahead and let him go in the world. Because it's just too expensive. They kept talking about credits, and they kept telling people, buy, which, as you know, our government does encourage people to spend money, because that's what drives the economy. So I get that secondary plot. But what's weird, one of my biggest problems with this movie, is those two things technically shouldn't tie together. At the end of the day, if you had no desires, no wants, no needs, you just went to work, went home, stared at white walls, watched something that looked like a television, why would you want to buy anything? And these people had nothing. Their apartments were completely empty. Nothing on the walls. No kind of, gadgets or anything. Just white walls. Basically, you had a chair, and I'm assuming a bed to sleep in. So what were they asking the people to buy? They didn't appear to buy anything. And why would you if you had no desires? After all, we all, have our own tastes and in aesthetics. So that's why we, buy certain things, and we have our own hobbies, like this one. And why we buy our radios and talk. But once again, if our whole sole purpose was to just work, we would spend no money. So I don't know who's making money here and why money's even important. I would think if we was at that state of development where we no longer had any real emotions and it's all about just building and developing stuff, then we really wouldn't care about money, so why do they? So to me, this is one of the biggest plot holes in this whole thing, because I don't think these two worlds would go together, and maybe I completely missed something. Very possible. Because once again, there wasn't a whole lot of explaining as everybody mentioned. The other part that was kind of ridiculous, I thought, was the part where he was sort of in prison with those other people, and they were just in that white room, and it looked like they're in the middle of nowhere, nothingness, just one giant white room. And apparently, when they tried to escape, they walked for, I don't know, hours, days, weeks. We don't know. They just walked forever, and eventually came to a door. Once again, what was that about? I'm sure it's supposed to be symbolic that these people are being isolated, but it just realistically didn't make any sense. Were these people stored in a basement someplace that's painted all white? I don't know. It was. I kind of see what he was going for. I see what he was going for, but it just, it was missing too much world building, and it needed filled in, and it was just too slow. Had they took the time to build the world, it would have not had all that wasted time. Or this movie should have just been kept a 30-minute thing. Anyway, that's all I got. Back to Nick, KB9SOK.
Oh, this is great. I've never seen more people perplexed and frustrated by a movie in my life. I always thought, Plan 9 from outer space or Jetstream caused frustration, but this is a pretty wholesale frustration fest today. Between Bill, Virginia, and yourself, I think we've got a home run of absolute horror. Okay, let's see if this continues. Let's go on to our next person online here on the radio, and that would be Brenda, WB50ZL. Brenda, what are your thoughts on the film? I bet you really enjoyed it and thought it was the best thing since sliced asteroids. Please tell us from KE5ICX.
WV50ZL. Oh dear. Sorry. I'm kind of going along with everybody. This is the formula for so many dystopian movies. They don't tell us what happened, how we got here. It's almost like window dressing. We're trying to set the mood or show a very utopian society, and there's not a whole lot of story behind it, or there's not much interaction with the characters or character development. We're so intent on showing how horrible dystopian society of the future is. We get into all these, the settings of how bad it is, and to the point, it's effective because you create a society nobody wants to live in, and just showing how bad it could be if we're not careful. On the other hand, you often end up not relating to the characters or caring what happens. There's no hope. There's no humor. There's no backstory. There's no character conflict. It's just, it's create a grim future and have people chase each other around or poke each other with sticks. That's lovely. It was hard to tell what was going on at times, and I'm often curious as to how these screenplay writers get from where we are now to where we're going to be in the future. It's like, what happens to make people accept not having sex or giving birth or given some free time? You would be sitting around a little coffee house visiting with your friends and telling a few jokes and laughing and then listening to some music, maybe going for a walk. Why anybody would accept just going home to blank walls is beyond me. That's not a life for anybody. And, I think they're just trying to tell you, how bad is it going to be here? What's the worst thing you can imagine? And so that's the world they create, and that's what they did here. Is let's just tell you how bad it could be if we let it. So I'm glad I saw it. I'm not a big fan. It was interesting, but I don't think I want to see it again. Back to net, W5OZL.
Very good. Thank you, Brenda. I got some notes out of you, too. So the advantage of being the net controller is you can take everything everybody says, make comments about it, and sound like you're brilliant or really dumb. Probably the latter for me. Okay, Nicholas, I'm going to come back to you in a minute to see what your opinion is of all the opinions. So let me go down to John, KJ5GOT. John, you saw the film. What did you think? What did you think about the plot for this one? That's on this round. Please go ahead from KJ5 ICX.
KJ5GOT. Unlike most of the people here, I kind of enjoyed the movie, but I feel like that was more in spite of the plot than because of it. I felt like a lot of the characters' motivations were kind of hard to clock. Some of their decisions were hard to follow. The scene in the prison, I wasn't really able to make sense about. The old man talking with Donald Pleasant's character, Ben, I think his name was. I didn't really understand Luz's motivations. And then all stuff other people said. The plot seemed kind of derivative from other science fiction films and literature, Brave New World especially. I think that's all I got. KJ5GOT, back to net.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you, John. Anyone else want to join us? Please come to your call. All right, hearing none. Nicholas, I'm going to get back to you in just a second. I'm going to give my comments, and I'm going to ask you what you think about the overall consensus. But here it is. I agree with everyone, and I'm not going to go over it again, simply because everybody has talked about it. The minimalism and the dystopian nature and all that. A couple of things, though. One is, don't forget, 1971. So we're just coming out of, or just emerging from the hippie times, and we're still in Vietnam and all of that. So there's a lot of counterculture things going on. I think this is sort of to show the oppression if commercialism goes unchecked. We become the slaves of commercialism and efficiency within that, which was another thing that they were doing at the time. So I think that was probably the reason why the story was written the way it was. But I also want to bring up something I think is interesting about dystopian stories, especially science fiction ones. They all are dull. They always come out the same way. All the things you mentioned are true. Nobody knows how they came about, how we get from where we were or are to this dystopian future is never really brought out. And none of the people, they all end up with the same sterile clothes and become completely boring and interchangeable. Literally, they're interchangeable. We don't care about the characters. And we had a pretty good cast here, too. I mean, Donald Pleasant, Robert Duvall, which, by the way, Duvall has played, I shouldn't get ahead of this, but he's played an alien in Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. I know, terrible series, except that this particular episode he was in was excellent. And he didn't say a word, not one word in the entire 1 hour. And he still came off as a really good performance. But that's another story. Now, what I want to do is compare to something that actually does work from a dystopian society, and that's the Mad Max series. Anyone who's watched those, now I know that there are people who don't like the violence in that, but push that aside for a second and think about the characterization. Think about how they get from where they were to where they are. Society is kind of fallen apart, but the characters themselves become these super crazy, crazed, fanatical individuals because they're the only ones left. They're the most colorful. They are in competition with one another, but they some of them have people have been elevated to godlike status because they're keeping them alive. Others are humorously sticking with whatever's going on, or valiantly pursuing whatever things that they can do to stay alive in the wilderness. Tremendously entertaining, and with lots of action, and very colorful characters. Were completely different from the antiseptic world. Take any of those films, and any of them, I think now 5 or 6, and each one has something really, really interesting. Now, I know it's not for everybody, but most people do like and find the Max films engaging, and they usually get pretty darn good reviews from people that generally don't like these kind of movies. So it can be done right. It can be done in an entertaining way, and you've got memorable characters that you'll never forget from each of those films. Even if you can't remember the name of the films, you'll always remember the characters. Always cool. So there's that. What else? Speculate about what's happened to society and how it's restructured. Some films do that now. There's dystopian films. You'll see it before and after. Certainly, what was an example? That not Last Man on Earth. The Omega Man. You'll see the one character who is the announcer, or the studio announcer, or television anchor, and he goes on and he does the same thing, only now he's a leader of a cult, right? Doing basically the same thing he did before. So you've got this line of progression, or regression, or digression, depending on how you look at it, and that character is central, because he takes a leadership role both pre- and post-apocalyptic circumstances. And it's an interesting thing, and you kind of wonder how that all came about, and it's hinted to in the film. All right, with that, I'm going to go back to Nicholas, WR6GT. Nicholas, hopefully you're still there. A couple hours earlier, so you may be wide awake. We get here long and too late at night, 11 here. But what do you think? Is this a film that you would see? Have you seen dystopian films, or some film of societal changes, science fiction that you particularly liked or hated? Give us your insight. Because sometimes the insight on somebody who has actually, participated in a particular film has come from a different angle because that's all they got. And it could be very, very interesting. So Nicholas, what do you think? Is this a film you would watch, or is there something more to your cup of tea, as they say?
Hi, Thomas. Nicholas, November, Romeo 6, Tango. Thank you, everybody, for your rousing reviews of the movie. I will admit freely, this was not something that has been on my radar. I have not seen this movie, GH61138, and unfortunately, I've got to say that following the reviews is probably not something that I will see. I think I need a little more extra motivation to watch older movies, and the things that have been said are not compelling me to grit my teeth and bear it through this one. It does make me wonder whether this film really would have seen the light of day or have seen the revival and popular following that it has, had it not been attributed with a certain George Lucas. It's quite interesting. I was rapidly Googling and looking through Rotten Tomatoes as you all were talking, and there's a lot of fan hysteria going on, a lot of 5-star reviews about how insightful and thought-provoking this movie was, but I wonder if that would have been true had it not been tied to Mr. Lucas. Certainly artsy, certainly experimental, certainly not the direction that he ultimately succeeded in with Star Wars. But yeah, I think it's very interesting. I have seen several dystopian movies. It is a genre that I like. I think this one may be a little too bland and dystopian for my liking, so I'm going to give it a pass. But thank you all very much for your insights on this. Back to you next. November Romeo 6, Tango Tango.
Very good. Thank you, Nicholas. And I did your call sign correctly on my list. Twice I wrote it down, and then the third time I wrote it down, I wrote a W instead of an N. I don't know why. But, yeah, thanks for your input. And, yeah, I think the general consensus is exactly what you said. It's a little too bland, and that's kind of how it ended up for everybody. And my ultimate rejection of a film is to fall asleep, to defiantly not watch the film because I'm tired. Okay, next round is characterization. It is interesting, we got some A-list actors in this thing, and some others that were strong character actors back at that time period. And now we're going to ask if they carry the performance or not, carry the movie through their performances or not. So we'll start with Jill, W5DLC. Jill, what do you think?
Character development? Was there not? Here, I do not. I couldn't tell you anything about these people or characters without looking it up. I'm not going to be very good at this round. I couldn't really tell anybody apart. I mean, except for the lady and then the HX, what's it say, 23856. No, that's not right. Whatever that guy's name with letters and numbers was. I just HX. Something or other. Now I just forgot the title. I'm slap happy. You know, it was just really hard to get into it. I didn't realize that these were androids talking as far as the cops. Like I said, they sound like stormtroopers. Maybe they were clones. I thought these were humans. So again, being blind, I missed out on so much in this movie, and maybe I could address the characterization better. I did read, because I couldn't see the movie. I did read that everybody was bald and they were in these white jumpsuits. Now, I'm not against people who are bald. Those of you who've seen me realize that I'm not well endowed with hair on top of my head. Just doesn't exist. But, so, I'm not against, baldness by any means. But, yeah, that was just kind of a weird thing that I had to read about. Anyway, you all are going to be able to address this characterization, I think, better. But I will say this, and maybe this would have been for the next round, but I could see where he got the idea for the way even the kind of the robots or the stormtroopers sounded. I'm getting ahead, but it's kind of with the character things, because I thought that the stormtroopers and droids and things were so revolutionary, and it really wasn't. I mean, it was kind of laid down a little bit. Obviously, you can see the ideas here taking form, and maybe that's some value on this movie. But like I said, I fell asleep twice watching it, and finally the third time got through it. And I just couldn't decide which I hated more, on the characters in this movie or Jar Jar Binks or the holiday special from Star Wars. And that was a disaster. but at least I could follow that. And as far as 2001, when I was 5, I fell asleep to it. And you know, it was on late at night for me as a 5-year-old kid. I mean, that was still on at 10 o'clock on TV. But at least was able to sit through that as an adult. W5BLT.
All right, thank you, Bill. By the way, I was trying to, when you started talking, you reminded me of something. There was an ad, actually, that had come out. I don't even remember what the ad was about, but it was actually a quote, a quick quote by Jim Moore when they were asking him, he's a coach, and they were asking him about playoffs. And he says, playoffs? You kidding me, playoffs? I just hope we can win a game. And he just goes off on after a really bad scene. And they quoted that or played it a million times since then. The way he says it, you sound exactly the way Jim Moore said it with the playoffs gig. So we started this movie. I just thought I'd mention that. Just go listen to it. And if you don't think it doesn't sound like you're thinking, yeah, because it sounds like, I've never heard you like this before. It's so funny hearing that. I think we found a breaking point. It wasn't Jetstream, which it should have been, or Plan 9 from Outer Space, or The Creeping Terror. It had to be this George Lucas movie that was too long. So, there you have it. All right, next is Virginia, NV5F. Virginia, cast and characterization. What do you think?
Okay, well, I liked the actors. They're good actors. I'm sorry to Bill for the genericness of or lack of dialogue, but the visually they were able to be told apart, and the two main characters were pretty good actors, when they were in their scenes together, having their intimate relations and all that. It was done tastefully. It was done, I actually did feel something for them. I just wish they'd had a more interesting story to be in, maybe a longer, a little bit more setup, and have maybe follow them and a little bit more and see just a little bit more, rhyme and reason to this world and why it's this way. I have some comments on that on the last round, and I'll try to make them as daintily as possible. But, yeah, Robert Duvall's always excellent, and everybody else in it, I liked the acting because it was still that, it was 70, 71, so that it still had that old school feel to it. There were some of the actors who'd been around for a while who had kind of that transatlantic accent, acting dialect thing going, and it had a different feel to it because of that. I kind of liked it. I thought some of the way they characterized the control room people, there was one scene in it that was it kind of struck me as Kubrickian, for lack of a better term, and it was the scene where they were showing the TV view of THX being tortured after a few scenes after him watching a robot torturing a person on television, which I guess was supposed to be a preventative measure, Anyway, there were views of him being tortured, and then there were two people casually discussing what they were seeing, and it was very casual and bland and work-a-day, and it was real disturbing. That kind of stuff, those juxtapositions always really disturb me. And when I was watching it, I was like, this looks like something Stanley Kubrick would do, just this scene that wasn't terribly graphic, but it was just the juxtaposition of a guy, a guy being tortured on television, while these two people who were possibly directing the torturing, were just very casually, sort of almost nonchalantly, as if they weren't really paying that much attention to what was going on. It was just another day at the office. That kind of stuff really bugs me. There were some things in this that were done very effectively, and the audio, the mix on the dialogue, and some of that stuff, that's kind of more round three stuff. But there were moments in this that were effective. When he goes into the confessional, and you realize that his second round in the confessional, you realize it's just a canned thing. You kind of figure it out the first time, but it's just kind of ironic that he's like, really trying to ask this thing for help. He doesn't feel well. He can't concentrate. He feels ill, and then like right in the middle of its canned responses, he just like throws up. There's some stuff in it that's really, there's some good material here from the actors, and there's some likability to these characters. I did care about them, and I wanted them to succeed and both get away together and maybe get out into the world and find a few people on the way and start a colony outside of the city, and that's more like a Logan's Run sort of a thing. But there was something there. There was something to them, and the actors were all good and generally likable. The human actors, but the androids were, you couldn't really see their faces, but they were just dudes in costumes. But anyway, yeah, I thought they did well, and there was just not enough material or not a good character arc or character development for them. Back to net, NV5F.
Thank you, Virginia. Next up is Sean, 89 SOK. Sean, same to you, cast and crew.
Yeah, this is KB9, SOK. Yeah, I agree with everybody said. This film I actually did want to like it, because I generally like George Lucas's films. For some reason, I didn't see this one, but this I wanted to, and as Virginia already pointed out, there was some good parts or good aspects of this film. Unfortunately, it just wasn't the plot, which kind of is an important part. Yes, I do think the actors did a good job of what they were asked to do. As you said, there's some pretty high-level actors, and I do think they portrayed it. I do think, our Robert's character at PHX, I think he played it very well. I mean, somebody that it was very obviously monotone, and once he got off the drugs, he started, to have feelings and have problems to concentrate, and he showed going through that. It's almost like watching a Star Trek episode where, Spock all at once is dealing with his feelings. And I do think, I can't think of the actress's name. The lady who played his mate, or his wife, she did a good job, obviously. She was showing emotion. So obviously she'd been off of this stuff for a while. I think them two did an excellent job of acting. And yes, obviously most of the actors in this were supposed to act very monotone because they were on the drug. And they really, nothing did shock them. And they did play that very well. Our one character, the one that essentially turned him in, he must have been, his job I think was a monitor of some type. Of course, then he went kind of crazy there in the prison, looking for ways to get out. I think he acted it okay. They went out our hologram, and not really sure what his motivation was, but I think the actors did an okay job. Obviously, there wasn't a whole lot of character development here. Once again, it'd been nice to know, how did his mate figure out not to take the drug, and how good I guess it was to actually feel things. Once again, it would have been nice to have some backstory on this, and this could have been, especially with these actors, could have been much, much better. So yeah, I was trying to think. We watched a movie about 9 months ago maybe, that was clearly a pretty close copy to this, because it's kind of the same scenario, where two people end up hooking up and the girl got pregnant and then they took it away from her. Can't think of the name of it. But yeah, this movie did obviously influence films of the future, because it's been kind of copied several times. So anyway, I don't have a whole lot to say about characterization other than that. Back to net, KB9SOK.
All right, thank you, Sean. And I was trying to remember, you made the comment about the whole thing with and then Sean reminded me again about the whole dialogue with the guys sitting there arguing about during the torture section. And they got the display, they got the three displays. Let's display 1 up, 2, and then 3. And he says, oh, don't go over 5.8. I think it was, or 4.8 or something like that, and there's these little tiny numbers on there, and I'm watching, it goes to 4.9, and he has this seizure thing that happened, and then they go back and they get distracted and do something else. I mean, it's just so matter-of-fact and haphazard along the way. Yeah, disturbing is a good word for it, and I think obviously it was done for effect. So Lucas did a good job in that regard. Right? Not so sure about the rest of it, but well, we'll get to some of the technical aspects in a bit, but I was going to mention that, and I went completely out of my head. All right, next up, Brenda, WB5OZL. Brenda, cast and crew, what do you think? From KE556.
This is WB5OZL. Well, if you want to create a utopian society, one thing you want to do is dehumanize everybody, and you make them all look alike or dress alike. You shave their heads and make them dress the same. That's one reason it was hard to tell people apart a little bit here. Clearly, that's the purpose in this. It's to break their spirit. You have no individuality. You have no opinion. You're just a cog in the wheel. So, but some of the characters stood out. I mean, they're such good actors. Donald Pleasance, I thought was especially good, and then Robert Duvall, who I always love, was pretty good at this. They did their best, and it was effective. They they projected a very depressing, horrible, utopian future. So I guess that was effective. Well, that's about all I have to say about that. Now think about it. That's just pretty much the only thing that I can think. Back to net, WB5OZL.
And the all-star list was ID, and when it does that, it messes up the transmission. Okay, let's go to John, KJ5GOT. John, your thoughts, cast and crew.
KJ5GOT. I don't have much to add to what's already been said. I think it was pretty much covered. Again, I had trouble kind of figuring out the motivations of some of the characters, Sen and La. I thought the shell dwellers, the little people, was kind of a trope that maybe was unnecessary. And yeah, that's all I'd like to add. KJ5GOT, back to net.
Okay, well, thank you, John. Let's see. Anyone else want to check in? Please come now with your call sign if you would like to, whether you saw the film or not. Tonight's movie is PTX 1138 from 1971. Okay, hearing none, I'll go ahead and give my comments. There was some talk about the actors themselves and being kind of old school. Yes, there was Ian Wolfe who was in there. You may remember him as Mr. Atos, Mr. A to Z from, what was it, All There Yesterdays. He played the librarian. Atos, A to Z, yes, got it. He was in it, and he had more or less just come off of that. It's been only 2 years since he played that role on Star Trek, so he looked very much the way you would expect. Robert Duvall, as I mentioned, had played a mute alien in first season Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. Did a nice job in that, by the way. I thought he was very convincing in that role, particularly considering that show had a lot of really bad episodes. That was one that actually did stand out. There was about a dozen really good episodes on the 4-year run, and one of them did have Robert Duvall in it. He also appeared in a lesser episode of Time Tunnel. He worked for Irwin Allen. Irwin Allen, if he could find people and he liked them, he would invite them back for other shows, which is pretty typical of any director or producer. Donald Pleasance played Donald Pleasance, as he always did. We saw him get eaten by the white blood corpuscle on the ship. In this case, he's a little more docile and nice and somewhat forgetful, but he was still quite good in the thing. Voices were always interesting. We know that there were different people that were voice actors in it who were very convincing. I particularly like the android, immensely patient but methodical android policeman, which was really kind of interesting because, you know, everybody was at odds with the cops and back then, the Buzz, the Pigs, all that stuff that they used to call them back then. Although we did have Mod Squad, which, you know, was pretty mod at the time. So, is that, at any rate. So I think that was it. The other things, I liked the confessioner, Holmes. A guy named James Wheaton, it says here. I don't know anything about him except that he was a television actor. I don't know anything about him. He had a really good voice for that, of course. And which brings out again the whole thing about the sound, which is particularly good in this film. Technical, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. All right, that's it there. By the way, there's the Superman on MeTV, the TV serial. And it's got one of my least favorite episodes on tonight, which is the moving town. It never made any sense to me that they make all their money off of Speed Trap and move the entire town. They really needed some better ideas than that. But at any rate, they're not shooting bullets at Superman's chest like they always did every week in every episode. Okay, let's go one more round. This is the final round. We're about on schedule. This one's the special effects, so, or any of the things that have to do with the mechanical aspects of the film, or, if you prefer, or you can add it at the end of any of anything you got. Open mic, whatever you want to discuss about this film. So we'll go at the top, and Nicholas, I'll put you in there on this round as well for anything you want to say. W5DOT, Bill, you're up.
Well, I think, you know, I was really confused in this because when you're talking about the motorcycles and the crashing the car, I guess that everything was supposed to sound futuristic, but to me they sounded like the X-Wings. I kept listening for TIE Fighter sounds. So it sounded like jets, and I was confused because I thought he was trying to escape into, like, outer space.
and the spaceships were being, chasing each other around. So I really was lost on this, not being able to see what was happening. And I didn't read anything from AI on it. I didn't do any Googling or anything like that or YouTube reviews. I wanted to be surprised on this because it was a George Lucas, and so the special effects threw me. But they did sound cool, though, and the dialogue was clear. I mean, I will give it that you could understand every word. And so often with some of these movies, everybody's just talking real quiet and real depressed, or these apocalyptic movies are sometimes hard to hear the dialogue. And so it was great sound mixing. It would have been cool to hear it in stereo, though. So for that, I mean, I can't comment on the visual effects and everything, but the sound effects were cool. It just really confused me because I would not have guessed motorbikes or cars or anything like that. So I was confused. But that's okay. There's something else I was going to say, and I haven't seen American Graffiti. I don't know if I would want to see that, but I don't know. Maybe I'll give that a go and see if it's any different. But anyway, that's all I got for this. Again, I so appreciate this net and everybody, because you all really do fill in a lot of gaps that sometimes happen in these movies. I hope next week's is a German one, though, with some more dialogue. W5BLT.
Hi, thanks, Bill. Thanks for your comments this evening. I don't know what our movie is. I got to go look at the list here and see what we got. There's a number of films that are active right now for free. Next up is Virginia ND5F. It's open mic, whatever you'd like to talk about, technical or otherwise.
Okay. Well, I do think the sound production on this was interesting, and I remember when I first saw it back when I was in college that I definitely heard the precursors to Star Wars in a lot of the audio designs in this, and that aesthetic was pretty clear to me even back then. There's a lot of weird, they used filters with that caused beats in the sound, making it sound like slightly out of tune, HF signals, and they do a lot of that in Star Wars, and I remember hearing some of that in this and thinking that was kind of cool, because I could definitely hear the history, of Star Wars and some of the audio design of this. Let's see, music was, I guess, it was doing its job because it didn't stick out, it didn't annoy me, it wasn't cheesy, it went with the feel of the movie. It had a serious quality to it, and it didn't seem cheesy or obnoxious. So music was all right. Some of the visual effects of the white rooms and stuff were striking, but that kind of stuff gets old really fast. And just the weird environment where it never seemed to really have any cohesiveness or you never had a sense of where you were, and maybe that was meant to give an overall effect of disorientation that the character was feeling. You never felt like there was any real point to anything, and never really any, you couldn't get a map of this place that they lived in your head based on any of their activities, and none of the places any people were seemed to be conducive to people, acting like people. I will say, I think every generation that makes a dystopian movie is expressing a concern based on maybe some of the cultural upheavals of the time, and it's interesting to watch this now because I won't go into detail, but I can see things in our culture in the last 20 years that, may not lead to a perfectly dystopian future, but there are things that are very discouraging to, the younger generations of people. They're very discouraging towards people having children, getting married, having children, having families. A lot of young people are, they're holed up in their rooms on their devices, and they don't even want to go out and see their friends. They don't want to learn how to drive. They don't want to get jobs. Video games have really, I think, wrecked the mentality of a whole generation of young men. And I feel like that there are certainly social phenomena that are really discouraging to procreation and kind of a traditional way of doing things. And I sometimes feel like things have been engineered with, the argument of overpopulation or other things that I don't necessarily agree with, but I from my point of view, if I were going to make a dystopian movie, I would still be probably thinking about some of the same issues and maybe thinking that they were coming from a different place than maybe George Lucas thought at the time when he was a young man in the 60s, and it was all, but it's all still directed towards what's perceived as the establishment, and this feeling of, we're being controlled by the media or the government or our parents or, the wealthy or whatever. So I can actually see some of the concerns of this being valid now, to me anyway. There are young people who are literally falling in love with AI-generated personalities and replacing real relationships with, kind of a metaverse sort of world where they're literally being sucked into, an alternate reality that's not real at all, and it's not realistic. And it may seem easier, but I think it's, a lot of these things are very, very. I feel like they're putting us in peril. And this movie, as much as I didn't feel like it was as good as it could have been, there were moments in it where I was like, oh my gosh, because I hadn't seen it in a very long time, so it was interesting to see it again. So I'll end with that, and it's just some food for thought for me anyway. Back to net, NV5F.
Hey, thank you, Virginia. Thank you. So, some comments, too. I have some comments about that in a little bit. 89's okay. Sean, you're up. Whatever you like. Open mic.
Yeah, this is KB9S, okay. Ooh, open mic, that's dangerous. I think the effects, the audio was, to me, actually was the highlights of this. For me, as far as the film goes, you definitely see that being carried forward in future movies, obviously with Star Wars. You hear identical effects. Obviously, when we were hearing the quote-unquote scratchy or echoey HF transmissions, it gets wet and everybody say, this is Red Leader. That was kind of my favorite part. Obviously, the aesthetics, you've seen that, he was a big fan of zooming in on control panels. Obviously, we've seen that in Star Wars, which actually I don't mind. I like it. So I was okay with the effects. Obviously, the all-white got very annoying after a while. It made the point, but it did get annoying. I wonder, too, sometimes if that wasn't budget. I didn't look at what the budget was, but being that he had to get help to get funding for this, I'm guessing it wasn't particularly large. So I'm guessing that there wasn't a whole lot of money there. You can kind of tell in the cars, when they cheesed them together, to make them look modern. But I still didn't mind it, actually. So, yeah, I was fine with the effects. The audio was interesting. And So yeah, I was okay with that part. And the music, yeah, there's even one, I can't remember the exact scene, I should have jotted it down. There's one scene, the background music, they actually used it again in Star Wars. It was the exact same theme, because I recognized it instantly. And I was like, oh, okay. So that's where he got it from. It wasn't original Star Wars. So it was interesting. If anything, at least this gave us an excuse to go back and watch this. Like I said, it's been on my list. And for some reason, I don't know why I hadn't watched it, but like I said, I'd seen parts of it, but just never seen all of it. So it's good. I'm glad we watched it. Don't know at the end of the day would I actually recommend this. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe if you're just, hardcore, if you like this kind of movie, or if you're just, one of those people like to complete a director's films that they've done, then maybe watch it. And one day I may go back and watch it just to see, did I miss stuff that maybe I should have gotten? But gathering from the group, I think I pretty well picked up on the same things. But yeah, no, this at the end of the day was, I agree with Virginia, this was a warning movie. We've seen this, that, this is, I think that really was the purpose of it. It was just a cautionary tale. And in some ways, yeah, different generations have kind of mimicked it in different ways. The latest generation, well, I'd say a couple generations ago, yes, it probably was getting lost in just video games. Now I think it's in dead scrolling. It's, these young kids today just sit there at their phone and it's almost like they're not even there. And they're just scrolling. And so that can become pretty mind-numbing. But anyway, enough on that, I guess. So yeah, interesting. I'm glad we watched it. Not sure I'll watch it again, but anyway, enjoyed the conversation. Back net, KB9SOK.
Thank you, Sean. Thanks for your comments. Next is Brenda, W5FC. Same to you. Whatever you want to talk about. Open mic, technical, something you missed on the first round, or just general angst. That one works too. KU5. I see it.
This is WB5OZL. Well, I'm a fair fan of George Lucas. Star Wars Episode 4 is still my favorite movie in the whole world. I guess this, you think about what's the purpose of a movie? Star Wars was so wonderful. It's a fairy tale. It's so exciting. It's so uplifting, and so so affirming. Whereas this movie is so depressing. I guess it's because it was a student movie, and they're expected to paint a horrible picture and to be very depressed. So obviously it's not something that's going to make a lot of money, and it's not that enjoyable. It was interesting, and I guess it's a cautionary tale when you talk about how bad it could be if we don't change our ways. But then after that, he made American Graffiti, which was so much fun. It was just a romp. And I guess he's just trying to make money with that. I don't know. But Star Wars, he definitely found the recipe for making good science fiction movies, with a couple of exceptions. And I'm glad he didn't stick with his genre, dystopian futures, because I have seen Episode 4 more times than I could ever count. I would not watch this one again. There's just no joy there, and nothing exciting, and nothing uplifting, and with Star Wars, you want to get in there and go fly on a spaceship. You want to be part of it. You really make it your own. And And I'm not alone there. My son is the biggest Star Wars fan in the world, having grown up with it. But nobody would ever create a life built around this movie. So I'm glad he found his way. Back to net, WB50ZL.
Okay, thank you, Brenda. Next up is Nicholas, NR6TT. Nicholas, you got any final comments? And hey, if you have a suggestion for a movie, put it out there from KB5 ICS.
It's November, Romeo 6, Tango Tango. I have nothing useful to contribute. I am laughing though, listening to everyone's commentary here. Certainly not a movie I'm going to put on my list. And Thomas, I'm tempted to offer up several ideas, but I don't have a comprehensive knowledge of what movies you all have watched recently. I shot you another email. Please check your junk or your spam. I suspect it may have gotten to spam. But thank you, everybody, for your contribution. Very much appreciated. Back to net, November Romeo 6, Tango Tango.
All right, Nicholas, I'll check my email right now and see. But yeah, thanks for coming back and thanks for your comments tonight. I appreciate it. Next up is John, AJ5GOT. That's GOT. I got it this time. You see what I did there? Okay, John, what do you got for us? Anything, your final comments? You got technical music or something we covered that or didn't cover, or whatever you would like. Pretty close to the final word tonight, but go ahead.
KJ5GOT. I really enjoyed the visual and audio aspects of this film a lot. The first scene where they had a bunch of cuts of different like CCTV footage and audio cuts, I really liked that. I thought the cinematography with the car chase at the end was really well done. There was a lot of criticism about the sounds being like very Star Wars and stuff, and but I really liked that. I thought that was well done. I thought the scene where they were in the big white room, I liked the way that was shot as well. Yeah, I got the most enjoyment of the film from that kind of stuff. I felt like that was really good where the plot was fairly weak. And I think that's all I got for that. KJ5GOT, back to net.
All right, very good. Thank you, John. Thanks for your comments. And Nicholas, I found your email. I'll make sure that I get you on the list. Yeah, I got it right here. So I'll respond to it here in a little bit. Okay, my final comments for tonight. A couple of things that are interesting. First off, the music's by Lalo Schifrin, and anybody who knows me knows that I'm a big fan of motion picture and television music. Well, Lalo Schifrin is well known to me, and to you too. You just don't realize it. Lalo Schifrin wrote the theme to the television show Mission Impossible, and I particularly like it at first. And the unusual way that it is composed. Virginia, you know the technical aspects of it. You might want to look it up about how Mission Impossible as a theme was created, because it's very unusual. So one item here that might be of interest to all, I don't know if it's an urban legend or not. It does pop up every once in a while involving Schifrin's Mission Impossible score. But if you listen carefully and blot out the fact that there are different notes change, it spells out in Morse code Mission Impossible, the letters M and I. So if you run that through your head and take away the note change, you'll hear that. I don't know how true that is. It may have been just to fill something out, but and it may be an urban legend, but that's what it is. And Lalo's not with us anymore, so I don't think that you're going to get that. But I like the score. The incidental score was quite good, and I thought it evoked a particularly good mood for the film. I agree with everyone else. Sound was excellent in this film. I don't know if this was enhanced. I do know I watched along with you. I already had a copy of the film here that I've had on for a number of years. So, and I don't watch it very often. In fact, probably the last time I watched it was 10 years ago when it came out on Blu-ray or something. And I do have it, so I spun it up and watched it. So my version is the enhanced version, or so they say. And I seem to remember the older version. I may go back and look and see if I can find the older version. If you look carefully, you'll see a little Easter egg in the film, and this was true. I think it was more pronounced in the earlier special effects versions. But you look and you'll see in the main control room there's a scene it's there for about half a second. And the lights, the rows of lights actually print out and flash the word tilt, T-I-L-T, for, pinball machine, blinking. So you may want to go back and look for that. It's kind of cute. Let's see, what else do I want to say about it? Visually, it was interesting. I agree with everyone else, although it was a bit odd with all the lights. But even still, the big giant white room. But overall, it was interesting to watch. Visually, it just took too darn long. At 88 minutes, it was still too long. It was a very, very thin plot. I like what Virginia said earlier, saying that the plot itself may have been, minimalistic as Stanley Kubrick had done, and you're trying to figure it out yourself. But as we've mentioned, that's all well and good, but sometimes you have to know origins so that you can take that cautionary tale. Not everything. Sometimes an ending to a film can be up to you. But the whole lead up to it doesn't necessarily have to be so cryptic you have no idea what's going on. At least in 2001. Missed this, but audiences that pay attention will get it. No audience could have figured this thing out. It just wasn't possible. So I think that minimalism was too minimal, too thin to really make a difference. So there you have it. Visually very good. The print that I saw was excellent. Of course, it came off the Blu-ray and the new process. I didn't see the one from the website, so I don't know. All right. Next time, I got Afterglow Movies up here. I did find one. I don't know anything about this. There was an American version of this film, and I don't know what the name of it was. I did not write it down, but next week's movie comes from what I understand, a popular British series called Quartermass. This one's called Quartermass 2 from 1957, science fiction.
Good morning. The time is 12 a.m. Code 55518. Time.
Sorry about that. There may have been something coming from the repeater. I do know that my little all-star link was IDing and giving me the time, and that always causes a mess up on my transmission. Anyway, so next week's movie will be Quartermass 2 from 1957. And Nicholas, I'll make sure that you're on the list, and you'll get that sometime in the morning, everybody. I'll put it out there, and I'll put in the link for the Facebook page as well. I want to thank everybody who participated this evening. We'll do this again next week. Everyone have a good one. This is KE5 ICX Clear.